All right. So we're going to get started on our third Nimbus town hall. I've got CEO and my friend Jobby John on the call with me today. We're going to talk about compounding. How's everything going today, Joby?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, real quick, like what brought this on was, I saw a lot of people hating on compounded products, especially now with the GLP-1. So I thought it'd be a good idea to just come in here and your expertise is in compounding. So let's start off with the basics. Like, what is compounding in regards to pharmacy?
Yeah, sure. And surprisingly, a lot of people still are not too quite sure about what compounding entails or what it is. Compounding's probably the oldest art form in pharmacy. Before there were pharmaceutically manufactured products, everything was compounded. Uh, Little known fact is even Eli Lilly, before it became Eli Lilly, was started by Eli Lilly, who was a pharmacist who had a compounding pharmacy. So compounding involves creating personalized medications for patients, basically by altering, combining, or mixing pharmaceutical ingredients. So you get active pharmaceutical ingredients, the raw powder, you make it into different formulations. So the custom preparation basically addresses specific patient such as allergies to certain components, or if they need a different dosage form that's actually not available in a mass produced product. Um, Sometimes there's products that are available as tablets that need to be made into cream because the patient can't swallow, or it's an infant who can't swallow pills yet. To be, he needs to have a medication in a rectal suppository, right? So basically, the art of using active pharmaceutical ingredient from the powder form and making it into different formulations is what compound is.
Yeah, and it's something that's happening in every city around the corner from you, and you probably didn't even realize it. A lot of doctors will send stuff into compounding pharmacies because we want to make combinations that aren't commercially available, or strengths, or flavoring, like you said, for kids, so that they can better take certain medications. Now, a lot of the hate that we're seeing around this is just misunderstood because they don't understand that compounding is actually regulated. So, from an industry perspective, is compounding regulated and how is that regulated?
100%, right? So compounding pharmacies in the United States are regulated by both the FDA and the state board of pharmacy, whichever state you're in. So we're in Texas. The Texas pharmacies are regulated by both the FDA and the Texas State Board of Pharmacy. The FDA basically sets guidelines to ensure that compounded medications are safe and effective, while the state boards oversee the pharmacy. Um, the Drug Quality and Security Act of like 2013 provides a framework of the actual regulations and distinguishes between traditional compounding and outsourcing. If you think back to 2013, that's when compounding started getting a bad rap, right? Because the whole New England compounding scandal happened. And just to kind of bring the audience up to date, compounding's been around for a very long time. But around 2009 to 2012 was kind of a dark area because there were some bad players who were not following all the guidelines, were making sterile compounded preparations. And these were serious medications they were making. They're making intrathecal injections, like things that were going into like spinal cords, etc. Right? Like very serious injectable medications. And they were not following the guidelines put forward by USP, FDA, or their state boards. And patients end up dying. Right. And that's like that's what you never want to see in medicine, period, or in pharmacy. So that happened and regulations started coming down and scrutiny on compounding pharmacies because of a few players. But it was also a good thing because now we have very rigid framework around what needs to happen when you make these medications.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when that was happening, and it was kind of wild. And then every now and then you hear of bad actors who aren't following what they should or doing the quality control that they should, and they're getting contaminated products. But you're seeing that more with normal pharmaceutical drugs, where those drugs are outsourced to other countries, and we don't have enough FDA inspectors to go and inspect the plants. And that's how you get all these drug recalls for products contaminated with potentially carcinogenic materials. So it's very important to realize that there are multiple layers of regulation to become a compounding pharmacy. And then I know you personally, you like to take things a step further and to make sure that there's ample quality control that is done. So what kind of quality control procedures do you guys have at place in your pharmacy?
Sure. Quality control is at the basis of compound. I mean, any pharmaceutical preparation, right? Because ultimately it's going to be ingested or injected by a patient. So, for compounding, we have rigorous testing on sterility, potency, endotoxins, for sterile preparations and for non-sterile preparations, quality assurance metrics to make sure that the beyond use date and the potency of these products are all properly done, right? Um, Currently, pharmacies follow USB 795 and 797 guidelines. 795 for non-sterile preparations like your capsules, your creams, etc., and 797 for inject sterile compounded preparation, basically. But that the FDA just approved, put into effect USB 800, which was I think approved in November of last year. So it's just fairly new compared to how long these guidelines have been around. And we are currently building out a sterile lab that's USB 800. Even though the state of Texas does not require it, that is the ultimate guideline you could follow, basically, that the government or FDA regulatory board has put out. And we're adhering to that to make sure we're following all the proper protocols.
Yeah, that's awesome. And knowing you're a forward thinker, you like to stay ahead of the curve, and you're a clinician, so patient safety is of the utmost importance. And for those who know me, I'm not going to do anything that's going to not be scientifically rigorous and well tested. And I think that's very important for people to understand, is that a lot of the time these products are being tested at multiple stages of product development. Raw materials are being tested. When they're formulated, they're being tested. They're being tested to make sure that after they're formulated, that they're meeting, like you said, those potency standards, that the drug is staying together like it's supposed to stay together till a certain, date, like you have expiration dates on everything. So that's very important for consumers to know. And I think, since we do a lot of GLP-1 at Nimbus, one of the questions that we get asked all the time is, well, if these things are patented, how are you able to compound the GLP-1 medications? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, great question. We see this come up a lot. So just getting back to four level, right? Typically, when a pharmaceutical company like Eli Lilly and Novo Novartis, who had the patents on semaglutide and tirzepatide specific, respectively, you cannot compound using those products. What has happened, which is pretty unprecedented, I mean, even for the drug, everybody knows about this drug, first of all, right? Because it's so popular, is the unforeseen demand for this drug has exceeded all expectations. The manufacturers cannot produce to meet the need. When things like this happen, the FDA steps in and they take measures to make sure that the population has access to these life-saving meds or life-altering meds. And that's what's happened here. So FDA put both semaglutide and tirzepatide on their short supply list. And once an API hits the short supply list, this allows compounders who are licensed in the United States to make drugs or make formulated preparations using the APIs. And that's why we're able to do it. And that's why you see compounded versions of semaglutide and tirzepatide on the market. So it's perfectly legal to use, perfectly legal to do, because the FDA mandates how that works. On the same note, I would, if you're getting these products from somewhere, I would make sure that you know where it's coming from, right? We talked about the bad actors earlier. So first, when semaglutide and tirzepatide got on the short supply list, they were buying the APIs from unauthorized manufacturing facilities. So they were dispensing semaglutide acetate or semaglutide, some kind of salt form of semaglutide, which is not the same thing as the base form, right? That's where all the studies were done on. That's what's equivalent to the drug that was studied and FDA approved. So it's different. It's not completely different, but it's different enough to where you don't know what the unforeseen side effects could be just by the salt form being a salt form. Who knows what the hepatic metabolite can be, or what the PK and PD on, like kinetics and the pharmacodynamics on these are. So it's very important that we kind of stick to the guidelines that are given to us. And that's what separates like a really good compounder from somebody who really doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple things there I want to touch on the fact that a lot of people don't understand that most pharmaceutical companies, not most, a good amount don't manufacture their APIs, their active pharmaceutical ingredients in-house anymore. A lot of them
Yeah.
don't even do research anymore. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are essentially merger and acquisitions and marketing, right? They buy up smaller clinical groups, then they go and market the drug, and that's how they make their monies now. So a lot of people are like, well, how can you get this stuff if it's patented? And say, well, because you can get it from the people who manufacture it for the drug companies, right? So you're going straight to the wholesaler who is making the product. And because of the current short supply list, we're able to do that. And I think what you mentioned is very important, that you're looking for people who have the same pharmaceutical ingredients, semaglutide or tirzepatide, and not the salt forms, because we just don't know. So those things may seem small, but they can completely change the way things are absorbed, how they distribute in the body, how they're eliminated, which can change the entire adverse effect and efficacy profile, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And it's also interesting that a lot of the patents on these things are on the dosage form and not the actual ingredient itself, which is
Rick, I was actually, yeah, I was actually doing a lot of diving into that specifically because I knew this was coming up, our town hall. And what I found is that you can actually, so these companies do actually have the patents on the products itself. But what was interesting is that they were all created somewhere else. Like, so a lot of times people are wondering, why are the APIs coming from China or India? So like here, I'll show you, I found this article, if I can share a screen here. Oh, I got to give Discord permission to share screen. So on. That shows how semaglutide's prepared. Like, oh, it won't let me share a screen, but I'll send it to you and maybe you can share it.
yeah,
The
send it
link
to
I'll put
me
it.
and I can splice it into the video.
Yeah, and here I can actually give it in the. Is there a comment section? You can pull it up and share the screen. Let's like.
Yep, and I just turned on the comment section.
Oh, there we go. That's why. Discord does not make anything easy. There you go. If you pull that up, you can see. So I was doing some digging on this. So semaglutide's patent with Novo goes till 2020, 2030. 2030 is what it showed. And they have like 15 patents on how it's administered and all that stuff. But I found this article, which is interesting. This is back from 2021 on how to make semaglutide. Basically, that information exists out. So it's not like it's a secret process, right? It's a long amino acid chain, basically, to form a peptide. So how you make it matters, and stability and all that. So this article was based out of India, and it's got IP protections all throughout the world, but they have this way in which you can make this effectively, right? So it just shows you how APIs are made everywhere around the world. And just because there's here doesn't mean that they can't make certain products in other countries, right? There's always exclusions for research. So for certain circumstances that might come up, like the short supply list, where the FDA allows some of their FDA approved facilities in other countries to make these products.
Yep. And the compounded GLPs are probably not going to go away anytime soon, just because of the demand is so high, and most of the bottleneck is in actually filling the pens, right? And that's going to take a long time to sort out, even though they just bought a company that does that. It's going to still take time to ramp that production up to the level that's going to meet the demand for all the pens. And then liraglutide, another GLP-1, is going to come off patent soon, I believe. And so you'll probably see that in compounded formulations as well. Once if we're not able to do the stuff we're doing now, that would probably be something that that we would turn to in order to continue to provide this service for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it'd be interesting to see where things go. And like we've been talking on some of our team huddles, we have found PCCA just put out a base that has very good cellular permeation of these peptides. It carries these peptides, is stable for long periods of time, and can get this into the tissues. So, a lot of people don't like injecting themselves. So there's innovation happening in the space thanks to the ability of having this peptide, right? So basically, there's a lot of nuances around it, around the protections and patents, et cetera. But ultimately, what's happened is patients have access to a medication that costs thousands of dollars for a fraction of that cost, and get it and change their lives. And that's what we've seen with the WeightWise program all over the country, right? We have hundreds of patients on our WeightWise program. To see their comments come in every week saying, I've lost 30 pounds or 40 pounds and it's changed my life, is just awesome. And we wouldn't be able to do that if we were relying on the manufactured product, because unfortunately, those products are not covered by insurance, like all the time, right? Like they used to be covered early on in 2021, 2022, and health insurance companies see this as a big burden. So they're not covering them because they're not cheap. They're expensive. But ultimately, if you look at it from a medical perspective, holistically, it ultimately helps them metabolically and changes their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to the sublingual product. There is an oral semaglutide product. It has terrible absorption. It's like 1% is
Yeah.
absorbed. So you have to use these mega high doses to get any of it to work. So really excited about that product and getting that out to you guys soon for those of you who don't like injections. Well, before we close out, is there anything else that you wanted to say about compounding or pharmacy or Nimbus in general?
No, we've started as a very small company with hormone optimization and hair restoration, and we've quickly grown into the weight-wise space with our GLP-1 medications, and we're continuing innovation. So it's been a great journey, and we're excited to see where it goes this year.
Thank you. All right, Barbara, I know you just jumped on. Welcome. If you have any questions about compounding real quick, just let us know. Otherwise, I'll get the replay up and you can take a look at it and then ask us any questions in the respective channels. All right, I don't see anything. Okay. All
Okay.
right. Well,
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thanks for coming out. Well, we'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.